You were always the one reaching out first. You were always the one making plans, checking in, showing up, giving your all. Until one day, you stopped. And that was the moment she finally noticed. Not because she loved you more, but because her control over you was gone. You've been made to feel like being emotionally available is a weakness, that your worth depends on how much you can give, how much you can chase. But listen to me, and listen carefully. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you start winning. This isn't just about her. This is about you, your mind, your energy, your peace, your power. If you're watching this right now, type in the comments, "I'm done chasing." Because from this point on, you're going to see the world and yourself differently. Support this channel to help us reach more men who need this, because what you're about to hear might be the wake-up call that rewrites your entire life. Number 1. Silence makes her panic. She gets used to the attention like it's oxygen. Every good morning text you send becomes her unspoken entitlement. Every phone call you initiate becomes background noise, something she expects like gravity. She doesn't question the effort because you've made it routine, and routine breeds complacency. You think you're building connection, loyalty, love. But in truth, you're creating dependency. On your part, not hers. She doesn't feel lucky to have your presence. She feels entitled to it. Your kindness becomes her leverage. Your loyalty becomes her cushion. And the worst part? She doesn't even realize it. Not consciously. She believes you'll always be there because you've trained her that way. You became the reliable guy, the emotionally available man, the one who always answers, always forgives, always stays. She doesn't respect it. She expects it. You've made yourself predictable, and predictability is the death of attraction. So the day you stop responding, the day your phone stays quiet, the day you choose not to validate her whims with your time and energy, she doesn't just notice it, she feels it like a void. Not because she misses you as a person, but because her control mechanism stops working. The machine she's been running, powered by your consistent validation, suddenly loses electricity. She starts spiraling, not openly, not with tears and calls and confessions. No. That comes later, if ever. At first, it's subtle. She checks her phone more often, refreshes your messages, scrolls through your socials to see if you've posted anything. She might even post something provocative herself. Half-naked photos, cryptic captions, not for attention in general, but for your attention. She doesn't care about strangers. She craves the reaction from the one who stopped giving a damn. She won't say it, but she's testing you. She's poking the void to see if you'll flinch, and when you don't, it breaks her illusion. Understand this. You didn't disappear to hurt her. You stepped back to find yourself, and in doing so, you forced her to see something she's never seen before, a man who doesn't need her to feel whole. That silence, it's not punishment, it's self-respect in action. But let's talk about you. The man watching this right now, with that lump in your throat, that ache in your chest, that confusion in your head. You're probably asking yourself if going quiet is the right move, if maybe you should just explain yourself. Tell her you need space, clarify your feelings, maybe get closure. But deep down, you know that's not what you need. What you need is space from the noise, from the endless cycle of proving your worth to someone who never took the time to see it. You need silence, not just from her, but from the chaos of trying to be enough for someone who never made you feel like you were. You think your silence is cruel, but it's the most honest thing you've ever done. Because silence, for a man, is sacred. It's where we heal. It's where we grow. It's where we reclaim every part of ourselves we gave away too freely. And the truth is, if you keep talking, explaining, chasing, apologizing for needing respect, she'll never feel the consequences of losing you. She'll never reflect. She'll never question her behavior. She'll just feel confirmed in her belief that you'll always be there, no matter how poorly she treats you. Your silence shatters that narrative. It forces her to sit in the discomfort of her own actions. It makes her wonder if maybe, just maybe, you were the one. But don't get twisted. This isn't about getting her back. This is about getting you back. Because the more you chase, the more you lose yourself. And the more you disappear into silence, the more you find your focus again. Think about what you've been sacrificing. Your time, your energy, your goals, your gym sessions, your peace. How many times did you interrupt your own momentum just to reply to a message that didn't even appreciate your presence? How many nights did you stay up wondering why your loyalty wasn't enough? That's over now. Starting today, your silence is your revolution. It's the line in the sand. It says, I'm not explaining myself anymore. You know what you did. And if you don't, then you were never listening in the first place. Your silence says, my time is no longer free. My attention is earned, not owed. It says, I will not water down my value to make you feel comfortable. And guess what happens next? She starts remembering everything, your consistency, your warmth, your patience. All the things she dismissed as too much suddenly feel like a loss. Not because you left a hole in her heart, but because you left a gap in her ego. She starts comparing every man she meets to you. But no one's texting her at 7 a.m. No one's listening without judgment. No one's caring enough to ask how she feels, because you weren't just another guy. You were a man who actually gave a damn. And now you're gone. Not angry, not bitter, just done. But listen carefully. Silence doesn't mean stagnation. While she's spiraling, you're building. You're back in the gym. You're focused on your business. You're reconnecting with your purpose. You're leveling up. Every second she spends wondering why you're quiet is a second you spend becoming the man she never truly deserved. You want to know how to apply this? Set a hard boundary. No contact. Not because it's a game, but because you're not a toy. Block her if you need to. Mute her if you must. But more importantly, disconnect from the hope. Stop fantasizing about her apology. Stop scripting the perfect conversation in your head. Let it go, all of it. Write down what you want from your life, not from her, from your life. Break it down, make a plan, execute, wake up earlier, eat better, read more, move with intention, speak less, win more. The more you fall in love with progress, the less you care about closure. And, ironically, that's when she comes back. Because nothing attracts a woman more than a man who no longer needs her, and nothing confuses her more than silence that's backed by peace. She'll try to re-engage. She'll send the "Hey stranger" text. She'll pop up in your comments. She'll try to reopen the door she slammed shut. But by then, you won't be standing on the other side. Because the man you were, the one who chased, who begged, who waited, is gone. And what stands in his place is a man who understands the value of silence. A man who no longer plays by rules designed to keep him small. A man who finally realizes the power was never in the noise. It was always in the absence. And as you begin choosing peace over chaos, you'll need a roadmap. Something to guide you through this new path where you no longer chase what breaks you. That's exactly why the Stoic relationship blueprint exists. It's more than a book. It's a weapon. For every man who's ever questioned his worth, begged for love, or stayed when he should have left, this is your guide back to power. And now, it's available as an audiobook, so you can absorb every life-changing truth while taking a walk, hitting the gym, or even just driving in silence. Every insight, every principle, every shift in perspective, always with you, always accessible, always ready when you need to be reminded of who you truly are. The link's in the comments. Get it now. Your future self will thank you. Number 2. Her illusion of control shatters. She believes she holds the upper hand, not because you told her she does, but because your behavior confirmed it over and over. You don't see it while it's happening. You're too close to the fire, too deep in the routine, too emotionally invested to realize you've slowly handed over the steering wheel without negotiation. You made compromises. You bent your schedule. You overlooked red flags. You forgave too soon. Every time she was cold and you chased harder, every time she pulled away and you pulled closer, you unknowingly cemented the idea that no matter what she does, you'll always be there. That is where the illusion of control is born, not from domination or abuse, but from subtle power shifts you allowed because you mistook them for love. She becomes the prize not because she's inherently better, but because you position her there in your mind and in your actions. And once that dynamic is established, she tests it, like anyone would test a structure they rely on. She stops texting first. She becomes inconsistent. She starts posting attention-seeking content online and watches who reacts. She criticizes your goals, your dreams, your decisions, knowing you'll still crawl back trying to explain yourself. She may even flirt with others in front of you, just to see if you'll tolerate it. And most of the time, you do. Not because you're weak, but because you think it's temporary. You believe she'll come back around, that it's just a phase, that love can't be this cruel. But what you don't see is the quiet erosion of respect. Every time you break your own standards just to keep her, she sees it. She might not say anything, but she registers it. And her perception of you changes. You go from a man she admired to a man she controls, from a force to a fallback. And once she feels like she has nothing to lose with you, she stops trying to impress you altogether. That's why she doesn't dress up anymore. That's why the affection is gone. That's why her tone shifted. Because she no longer feels the need to earn anything from you. You've already given her everything, including your dignity. But then something happens. You stop. Not dramatically, not with a big speech or a public breakup. Quietly. You stop texting first. You stop justifying your emotions. You stop reacting to the bait she throws at you. You stop showing up just to prove a point she never cared to understand. And that, right there, is the moment everything breaks. Not in your world, but in hers. Because her power didn't come from her strength. It came from your willingness to shrink. And when you stop shrinking, when you reclaim your time and your focus, her entire psychological structure falls apart. She doesn't know how to process it because she was never actually in control of you. She was in control of your need for her, and now that need is gone, or at least it's hidden. That's when the questions start creeping in. Why isn't he reacting? Why is he so calm? Why is he smiling again? She tells herself stories to preserve the ego. He must be seeing someone else. He's just doing this to get a reaction. He'll be back. But deep down, there's a voice she tries to drown out. A voice that says, maybe, just maybe, she pushed too far. Maybe she took it all for granted. Maybe she's not as in control as she thought. And that voice doesn't stop. It grows louder every day you don't return to the version of you she used to manipulate. She starts to feel the absence, not of your presence, but of your submission. The thing she really misses is the ability to influence you. That's what hurts her ego. Not the man, you, but the power she no longer holds over you. And now, she starts doing what you used to do. She posts for attention and checks to see if you've seen it. She messages mutual friends asking about you. She throws subtle bait in conversations, hoping you'll bite. But you don't, because something shifted inside you. You saw the pattern, you recognized the game, and you're not playing anymore. Not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the need for validation from someone who never respected you. And the irony, that's when she starts chasing. But it's not love, it's desperation to restore a power dynamic that benefited her. She might text you something nostalgic. She might ask if you're free. She might say she misses you. But you, having evolved, recognize it for what it is: a trap, a plea not for connection, but for control. And if you're still healing, you might be tempted. You might think, maybe she changed. But don't confuse curiosity with commitment. She's not back because she sees your worth. She's back because she lost control. And that is the most dangerous moment for a man. Because your ego wants to hear her admit she was wrong. Your heart wants to believe this time it will be different. But your gut knows better. You remember the nights you cried in silence while she slept peacefully, unaware and unconcerned. You remember begging for communication while she gave you crumbs. You remember questioning your own worth just to keep someone who never questioned losing you. That memory must stay sharp, because that is the fuel that will stop you from returning to the fire that once burned you. Let her illusion shatter. Let her learn what it feels like to want someone who doesn't bend. Let her understand that love without respect is a slow death to the soul. And let yourself walk away, not with hatred, but with honor, because you didn't lose her. You freed yourself. And that freedom, it's the foundation of everything you're about to build. Your business, your body, your discipline, your legacy. All of it becomes possible the moment you stop proving yourself to someone who never even saw you. So what do you do next? You double down on your purpose. You write down exactly what you want from your life and cut out everything that doesn't align with it. You create boundaries and enforce them like your life depends on it, because it does. You start saying no to anything that pulls you away from your goals. And you never ever beg for attention again. Because now you know, respect isn't requested, it's required. And control, that was never hers to have. It was yours all along. Number 3, psychology of regret. Kicks in. She doesn't understand it at first. The silence, the lack of effort, the absence of your familiar energy. It confuses her, not because she's confused about what she did, but because she never believed you'd actually stop showing up. You were always the one trying, always the one making things work, always the one coming back, no matter how many times she left emotionally. She convinced herself you'd never walk away, that you'd always be the emotional safety net she never had to earn. So when you finally step back, when you finally say nothing, do nothing, expect nothing, it hits differently. Not because she suddenly respects you, but because you just did something she didn't think you were capable of. And that's when her psychology turns on itself. She starts questioning everything. Why did he stop trying? Why is he not reacting? What if he really moved on? You haven't said a word, but her mind is having a full-blown conversation with itself every time she sees your name, or worse, doesn't see it. Your silence becomes louder than all your past efforts combined. And it's not the silence that breaks her. It's what it symbolizes, the end of her control over your emotions. Her brain, wired for validation and certainty, starts spiraling in uncertainty. She begins to obsess over your last conversation. She reads old messages, searching for clues. She questions her decisions, wondering if she pushed too far, because now the nice guy who once made her feel like a queen suddenly seems unreachable, and that lack of access triggers panic, regret, obsession. And no, she's not crying about you out of love. Not yet. She's crying because the person who used to orbit her life like gravity has become a ghost. She expected you to chase. She prepared for the drama, the fight, the begging. But none of that came. And that confuses her more than anything. Because most men don't do this. Most men double down when they're ignored. Most men try harder when they're devalued. But you didn't. You walked away like she never mattered. And now, she's the one chasing closure. Understand something deep. Regret is not just emotional, it's chemical. When the brain loses a source of validation it once controlled, it goes into withdrawal, and you were her dopamine supplier. Every text, every call, every reaction. You gave her a hit of control, and now that you're gone, she's crashing. The body mimics heartbreak, but the soul feels ego death, and her pride is what's hurting the most, because for a long time she believed she was irreplaceable. And now she's realizing she's not even unforgettable. And that realization doesn't just sting, it haunts. She starts watching your life from a distance, watching you grow, watching you win, watching you glow up. Every post you make that doesn't acknowledge her existence becomes another dagger in her fantasy, because now she's no longer the center of your universe, and the man who once begged for her energy now doesn't even notice her absence. That's what drives her crazy. Not the idea that you moved on, but that you moved on without needing her to watch. And here's where the transformation happens for you. You stop seeking revenge. You stop waiting for her apology. You stop needing her recognition, because somewhere in that silence, you found yourself. You realized that the version of you who tolerated disrespect was just a chapter, not the whole story. You understood that giving your best to someone who didn't value it wasn't love. It was self-abandonment. And now you're different. You don't just ignore her out of anger. You ignore her out of clarity. You're not cold. You're just not accessible to chaos anymore. You're no longer explaining your worth to someone who didn't care to see it. You're not playing emotional ping-pong with someone who only responds when you retreat. You're not teaching her how to love you by sacrificing your peace. Instead, you're building, grinding, growing, reading, lifting, healing. And the more you focus on becoming the man she never thought you could be, the more she regrets ever thinking you were the kind of man who would stay despite it all. This isn't about proving her wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The moment you stopped needing her to see you was the moment you truly saw yourself. And now, you're untouchable. Because once a man finds peace in his solitude, he becomes immune to emotional manipulation. You start noticing red flags earlier. You start walking away quicker. You stop romanticizing people who can't match your effort. You stop entertaining what doesn't elevate you. And you stop explaining your standards to people who only want to drain you. That regret she's feeling, that's not your burden to carry. That's her lesson. You were her lesson. You showed her what consistency looks like. You showed her what loyalty feels like. And now that it's gone, she realizes she was never ready for what she asked for. And that's on her, not you. Your job now is simple. Stay gone. Don't revisit the past looking for closure. Don't reopen wounds that you've spent months healing. Don't mistake her regret for transformation, because regret is easy. Change is rare. Anyone can feel bad about losing something good. But very few people change enough to deserve it back. And if she comes back, know this. She's not coming back because she finally gets it. She's coming back because the reality of losing control over you is harder than she expected. Don't fall for it. You don't need validation from someone who only realized your value once you left. You validate yourself every time you say no to what disrespects you. You honor yourself every time you choose peace over potential. And you empower yourself every time you stay focused on the life you're building. Because the best revenge is not bitterness. It's becoming everything she said you couldn't be without her. The psychology of regret is real, but it's not your responsibility to help her through it. She had her chance. She chose to misuse your love. Now she gets to miss it. Let her sit in that silence. Let her wonder. Let her regret. While you rise, while you elevate, while you build a life so full, so rich, so purposeful, that even the thought of going back feels like betrayal to the man you've become. You don't need closure. You need discipline. You don't need her attention. You need direction. And you don't need to be loved by someone who broke you. You need to be respected by the man staring back at you in the mirror. That's your mission now. Stay the course. The regret is hers. The peace is yours. Number 4. Respect replaces affection. She once smiled at your affection because she knew it was hers without effort. A currency you spent without calculation. A resource you poured endlessly into her hands expecting love in return, only to realize too late that affection given freely to someone who doesn't value it becomes a tool used against you. You loved her deeply, openly, and consistently, believing that the more you gave, the more she'd appreciate, reciprocate, elevate the relationship. But that's not what happened. The more you gave, the more she pulled away. You texted faster, and she replied slower. You gave compliments, and she rolled her eyes. You initiated plans, and she postponed them. And in your mind, you confused this for emotional complexity, when in reality, it was simple. She didn't respect the affection because she didn't have to earn it. You made her your priority, but she made you an option. You were the giver, the healer, the one always smoothing things over, always apologizing, even when you weren't wrong, just to keep the peace. And while that might sound noble, the truth is, it only taught her that you would sacrifice your dignity just to avoid conflict. She learned that you were afraid to lose her, so she stopped trying not to lose you. And that is where affection dies. Not in arguments, but in imbalance. Because a man who gives too much to a woman who gives too little creates a dynamic where affection is no longer a bond, it's leverage. And she leverages it. She withholds it when she wants control. She doles it out in pieces to keep you emotionally chasing. She becomes emotionally distant while expecting you to close the gap. And each time you try harder, she invests less. Why? Because deep down, she doesn't respect you. She may like you. She may even care about you. But respect, that's something else entirely. Respect isn't built on how sweet you are. It's built on how firm your boundaries are. Respect doesn't come from how much you tolerate. It comes from how quickly you walk when those lines are crossed. And that's what you didn't do. You didn't leave when she tested you. You didn't speak up when she disrespected you. You justified, rationalized, explained. You played therapist when she played cold. You stayed when you should have walked. And every time you stayed, the respect she had for you eroded. Because in her mind, if you respected yourself, you wouldn't allow the disrespect. She won't say this out loud. Most women never do. But it shows in her behavior. It shows in the way she talks to you, in the tone she uses, in how dismissive she becomes when you express needs. That coldness, that indifference, that's not who she was in the beginning. That's who she became once she realized you were no longer a challenge, that she didn't have to earn your love, that you'd hand it over regardless. But then one day you stop. You don't argue, you don't send paragraphs, you don't chase anymore. You pull back, not to teach her a lesson, but because you're done teaching her how to treat you. And in that moment, everything shifts. She notices the absence, not just of attention, but of access. She realizes she no longer gets to dictate the terms. She senses the change, even if she can't admit it. Suddenly, your time feels more valuable. Your energy seems harder to reach. Your silence becomes louder than any love letter, and the affection she once took for granted starts to feel like a memory. That's when she starts respecting you, not because you withdrew affection, but because you started respecting yourself. And respect replaces affection, not just in her eyes, but in yours. You begin to see the truth. You weren't asking for too much. You were giving too much to the wrong person. You weren't weak. You were just emotionally generous in a world that punishes emotional generosity when it's given without reciprocity. But now you've learned, you've shifted, You no longer crave affection from people who can't offer it with intention. You no longer beg for love. You attract it by being whole. And if it doesn't come, you're not destroyed by it, because you no longer define your worth by someone else's willingness to love you. Instead, you define your worth by your actions, your discipline, your purpose. You no longer seek softness from people who weaponized your kindness. You become soft where it matters, in your inner world, in your heart, but strong where it's needed, in your boundaries, in your standards, in your walk. That's when the world starts to see you differently. You go from needy to needed, from chasing to choosing, from begging to building. And the best part? You no longer feel the need to be validated for doing the right thing. Because when respect becomes your foundation, the need for approval dies. She might come back. They always do, with questions, with apologies, with claims of realization. But now you see it differently. You see that love without respect is just emotional charity, and you no longer fund anyone who can't match your currency. So what do you do now? You embody the man you thought you needed to be to keep her, but this time, not for her, for you. You show up early. You train with intensity. You speak less. You listen more. You lead with vision. You date with standards. You don't give affection hoping for love. You give value because it's who you are, not because you're trying to prove it to someone who once overlooked it. And with each move you make, the gap between who you were and who you are widens. Until eventually, the man who once chased, who once begged, who once needed validation just to feel seen, becomes unrecognizable, even to himself. And that's the goal. To outgrow the version of you who thought love was earned through sacrifice. To transform into the man who realizes that real love begins with self-respect. Number 5. Walking away is power. There comes a point where the texts stop, where the apologies go unsent, where the need to be understood dies quietly, not with rage or fanfare, but with cold, sobering acceptance. That point, the breaking point, is when you decide to walk away, not out of hate, but because your peace finally outweighs your need to prove anything. You're done convincing someone who only valued you when you were desperate for their attention. You're done being emotionally extorted by empty promises and selective affection. And this is when everything changes, not just in your relationship with her, but in your relationship with yourself. Because walking away isn't weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It's the decision to no longer beg for crumbs at a table you built. It's the quiet revolution that begins when a man chooses his dignity over access. And make no mistake, she notices. She feels it, not immediately, because her arrogance clouds her vision, but eventually, because your absence creates a silence too deafening to ignore. She thought you'd come back. They always do, right? That's the script she's used to. Men fight, men chase, men return. But you didn't. You disappeared, not to manipulate, but to liberate yourself. She checks your socials. Nothing. She sends a "hope you're good" text. No reply. She posts thirst traps. You don't bite. That's when it hits her. She lost access to a man who was once always available. And that loss isn't just emotional, it's existential. Because you were never just another guy. You were the stability, the comfort, the emotional foundation she never had to work for. And now, it's gone. You walking away forces her to confront something she never wanted to admit. That she misused a good man. That she took for granted what most women are desperately looking for. But this is bigger than her. This is about you. Because walking away isn't just about leaving. It's about arriving. Arriving into a new identity, a new discipline, a new standard. It's about becoming the man who no longer explains why he deserves basic decency. The man who builds a life so full, so rich, so focused, that anyone who can't match his pace gets left behind. No drama, no announcements, just distance. And this new version of you, he doesn't settle, he doesn't tolerate, he doesn't wait for people to figure it out. He speaks less and moves more. He values his time like gold and treats his energy like currency. He's not bitter, he's busy. Busy building, busy learning, busy becoming untouchable to the kind of emotional chaos that once consumed him. And you know what's ironic? The moment you become this man is the moment they all start circling back. They see the glow up. They hear about your progress. They remember the version of you they took for granted. But now he's sharper, stronger, more silent, more selective. And that scares them. Because for the first time, they can't predict you. You're no longer the emotional punching bag. You're no longer waiting around for closure or apologies. You're moving forward so fast that even if they wanted to catch up, they'd be breathless trying. That's the power of walking away. It flips the narrative. It reclaims your story. It puts you in the driver's seat. You're no longer defined by what she thinks of you. You're defined by how much you've grown since she lost you. And this doesn't just apply to romantic relationships. This is about every area of life where you've been undervalued. The job that drained you, the friendships that used you, the environments that limited you. Walking away from all of it is power, because power is peace. And peace is the most expensive thing in the world. You don't give it away to people who can't even pay attention. So how do you live this out? You start by writing your non-negotiables, not just in relationships, but in life. What you will and will not accept. What you will walk away from without flinching. You enforce those standards even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's lonely, even when the old version of you wants to go back. You stay the course. You build your body, your mindset, your mission. You become so purpose-driven that love no longer becomes a drug. It becomes a bonus. And when the wrong people try to come back, you don't entertain it. Not because you're angry, but because you're aligned. You're on a path now. A path paved by every time you gave your all to someone who didn't see it, and every lesson you learned in return. That's the fuel. That's the reason. And that's the power. So let her watch. Let them wonder. Let the silence do what your words never could. Because walking away isn't an end. It's a beginning. And the man who walks away is the man who wins. Every time. If you've ever given your all to someone who couldn't see your worth, if you've ever begged for clarity that never came, or waited for respect that was never returned, now is the time to reclaim your power. The truth is, most men spend years chasing love and lose themselves in the process. But you don't have to. The Stoic relationship blueprint isn't just a book, it's a wake-up call. And now you can listen to it while you walk, jog, train, or even sit in silence. The audiobook version is finally here, and it's yours for life. Every word, every principle, always there when you need it most. The link's in the comments. If you're done chasing and ready to level up, comment, "I choose power." Like the video, subscribe, and help more men find these truths before they waste years they'll never get back.